What's up, guys? This is Deacon Lacrosse here, and with me today is my great friend, Mr. Maxwell Carlisle here of the ever-popular GuitarMAX channel. And something that we discuss a lot about is how personal guitar playing can really be. But the problem with that is, or the great thing about that is it can breed a lot of discussions, it can breed a lot of opinions, but more importantly, it can breed a lot of controversy.
Yeah, controversy and arguments, right? There are certain topics that come up over and over again where people are always arguing about, like, oh no, this is better, no, that's better, or you should do this, or you shouldn't do that. And these things just go on and on and on. So we've kind of come up with a list of basically like what we think is the top 5 most common arguments or debates. Yeah. And I think we can actually settle some of this stuff today.
I think so. Let's do it.
All right.
So let's get started with our first topic, guys. And it's a pretty big heavy hitter, honestly. The first topic we're going to go over is theory better than no theory? Theory or no theory? I mean, it's debated a lot whether it's better to know exactly what you're doing,
right,
or to just feel it out and kind of like just go for it and be a creator. And I mean, where do you stand on that kind of an idea?
So one thing that I always think about is a lot of people I've talked to who have gone to music school and like prestigious music schools, you know, not just taking a few classes, but they got a degree. Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Okay.
And one thing that I always hear them complain about is how difficult it is for them to compose or to write something because they are hyper aware of everything that they're doing. And they'll come up with an idea and they'll be like, no, I can't do that because so-and-so did that in some composition, or like, oh, that's such a predictable chord progression to use, or something like that. And they hyper-analyze things, and then they can never decide on what to do. And I've actually talked to a lot of people who have that problem. And so
they kind of like live by the book like all the time. And it's kind of like a curse you can't get away from. See, I was always like on the fence about like that specifically, because if you didn't have any theory, then how do you know what to do ever?
Right.
You know, and I'm not on that fence either. I'm more on the side of some theory is good.
Right.
Because it gives you a starting point. It gives you a place to know where to at least begin.
Yeah.
You know, but I could definitely see like that kind of perfectionist attitude coming from knowing everything about it.
Right.
And then that's something you just can't get away from. It's like, oh, that's this progression.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. That's not right.
And you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's an interesting.
And I think on the other hand, if you're just by yourself, right, you're only composing on your own and that kind of thing, maybe you can get away with absolutely no theory. But I think in a situation where you are communicating with other musicians, not knowing what key you're in, or things like that, that makes it really difficult to communicate with other musicians when you have absolutely no theory.
I could see that, but then there's also a tie into that as well too, is commercialism and non-commercialism.
Sure.
So if you're a musician to yourself, it doesn't really matter what you do because you're making music for yourself. But then if you're making music for commercialism and consumers, I mean, there's a little bit of a branching point there, right?
So, of course.
So I mean, like, in some ways, I think that some theory could be worth, and advantageous to a musician and a composer of some kind. But at the same time, I feel like too much of it is trapping a little bit.
I think this kind of comes down to what are your goals?
Okay.
Right, and a lot of things are like that, right? It's like if your goal is to be a pure artist, and you just want to express, the art that's inside you, this kind of thing.
Okay.
Probably no theory is better. Like just overall, probably you would be maybe more creative, more free thinking if you don't have theory. But if your goal is something else, if your goal is to be, to produce something commercial, or to create something that then is going to, it's not just for you, but other musicians are going to be involved in and play.
Right.
Then I think you do at least need some theory.
Sure.
Maybe not all the theory.
I think it kind of comes down to like a happy medium. Like a little bit of both is really good. Like having a little bit of this and having a little bit of this, so that it doesn't like compete and it doesn't like it doesn't overstep on either side, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's not hindering your creativity, but but it's also not. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say?
Sure, yeah.
But yeah,
it's not locking you in to certain ways of thinking.
Yeah,
you know, you can still maybe realize what it is you're doing in terms of theory, but not be controlled by it. If that
I think that I think it was Joe Satriani or somebody said that I learned enough theory so that I could forget it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like having the theory
yeah.
behind you, but then having the ability to not be dictated by it is smart.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of seems like what we both kind of agree on here.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So let's move on to topic number 2. Are you ready, Max?
I'm ready.
All right.
It's a big one.
Yeah, a little bit. So the next topic is going to be speed or feel. Now, as soon as I say that, I kind of wince a little bit because that's a massive controversy, and I love it.
Yeah.
But I see it all the time. I see it all the time, like in videos, and I'm sure you get it.
Of course,
I've got it already.
I wish we could get Michael Angelo Beatty.
I know, right?
Ask him about this because
that would be perfect.
It's the ultimate.
But yeah, a lot of the comments, without like verbatim or calling anybody out or anything like that, a lot of comments that we get are things like, "But where's the feel?
Yeah, where's the emotion?
Right? Or like, why play fast when it's just better to play melodically or something like that?"
Too many notes.
Yeah, or I mean, but at the same time, like somebody could also say, "Why play melodically when speed is more fun?"
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a big topic. Like, what's your take on the "where's the feel" kind of thing? What are your thoughts on that?
So my feeling is that the people who are making those not the people who are making the comments, but the people who they're responding to.
Okay.
Right. Like, let's say someone's watching a Michelangelo video, right? And he's doing, sweep picking and all kinds of stuff and just blazing. And somebody will look at that and be like, "Oh, but where's the emotion? Where's the feel? Where's the melody? This kind of stuff." It's like, just because that guitar player is doing this right now doesn't mean they can't do anything else.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think people will see one thing that, or maybe they'll pick one particular thing that a guitar player is maybe known for, like something that stands out about them, and assume that represents all of the playing that they do.
I see.
And like, obviously, if you dig deeper into Michael Bettio's catalog, he has jazz tunes and like really interesting chord progressions and slower songs, ballads and that kind of stuff. But I get, that stuff just doesn't always get as much attention, and so people, they get hyper-focused on the fast stuff, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's all he does." So I think that's a big thing right there. Is assuming that a guitar player only plays in one particular style.
And assumptions are dangerous, too, like, because what's to say that the speed and what they're playing exactly is not a feel?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I always wondered that thing, too. It's like, what makes you think that how they're playing, if they're playing fast or whatever, is not a feeling to them?
Right.
You know what I mean? Maybe that's portraying some kind of an emotion that's just abnormal to how you feel an emotion should be.
Sure.
Because to me that kind of stems from, I think this way, therefore you should do what I think.
Yeah.
And that's kind of rude, but at the same time, I feel like I would do that too.
Right.
I'm a human. I'd be like, well, that's not how I would do it.
Yeah.
But then that translates to, so why don't you do it my way? Where's my way?
Sure.
And
I think different people gravitate towards different emotions and different feels themselves, right?
Yes.
And so it's like going to a concert. Do you want to go to a Kenny G concert, or do you want to go to a Slayer concert?
Yeah.
They're both music,
right?
And they're both communicating different emotions, and this it's both about feeling and emotion, right?
Yeah.
But very different emotions and very different feelings.
Very much so. Absolutely.
And it's not always going to work for the same person,
but
it is still a feeling. It is still an emotion. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It's speed or a frenzy, right?
Yeah.
That is an emotion. That is a feeling right there.
Absolutely.
It just might not be what that listener's looking for.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that it is possible to play melodically with no feel.
Oh, yeah.
It is possible to
Absolutely.
It is possible to play super fast with all the intention of feel.
Yes.
I just don't think that anybody should be pigeonholed that because you play fast,
Right.
that means you have no emotions.
Yeah.
I think that you could just as easily pick on people for playing perfect notes at the right time and having zero emotion in it.
Yeah, that is a great point. Because you can program something, a MIDI file or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And have the computer play it. The notes will be perfectly in tune, perfectly in time. Zero emotion, zero feel, and it comes across that way. It's like you can hear it. It's stale.
It doesn't have any charisma. It has nothing.
Right.
Yeah. So
it has nothing to do with the speed.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So I don't want to go and be like, stop picking on people for this or that. I just think about it for a sec.
Yeah.
Like have an open mind about something. Maybe this, maybe that. Question it rather than destroy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I'd say.
Yeah. The other thing, too, that I think about is perhaps better than anybody, the amount of practice it takes to build up that speed. When somebody's really just like, 16th notes at 200 BPM or whatever. It's like, I mean, that is an extreme amount of work and practice that goes into developing that skill.
Absolutely.
I personally think anybody who has invested that amount of time in developing that technique, they can play slow very well.
You would think.
You know what I mean? Like, it's almost impossible to spend that much time.
Yeah.
The amount of time that is required to developing a really fast technique, it's almost impossible to spend that much time doing something and not be good at the slower version.
Because you'd think you'd have to incrementally work your way up, so that all the steps before it may not have, you may not have spent as much time as you do at the apex of it.
Right.
But you still had to go.
Go through
yes,
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the third topic now. You actually segued it into it pretty well, and I don't think you even realized it. But the next topic is going to be. Is it better to practice something slow and build up, or is it more efficient to just do it fast first and just get better?
Right.
So practice slow with a metronome, work your way up, or practice faster and just work through the bricks.
Right.
What do you think?
I mean, to me, this is an easy answer to this. I think you need to start slow and perfect it at a slow speed.
Okay.
And then gradually move up to playing faster. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One is it works.
Okay.
I mean, it's been shown to work.
Yes.
The second thing is that prevents you from learning. It prevents you from bad habits, from developing bad habits.
That's a really good point. I was actually going to bring that up too. Like it goes in anything that you do, like driving a manual car. Like I'm not going to start by just going for it. I'm not going to do it right. You know what I mean? It's a really psychological topic to me, actually, because you have to progress through a lot of barriers before your brain can understand that level.
Right.
So at level 1, your brain only understands level 1 because it's never bypassed it. Mm-hmm. So once you build all the way up to your apex of your skill, if you will, or where you currently are, let's consider where you currently are in your skill level, your apex, because you can always build and grow more.
Yeah.
But once you're at a level, your brain can understand that level in parallel subjects and topics as far as music goes. So say I'm here and I'm this good at alternate picking.
Right.
I can probably learn economy picking up to speed because I understand mentally how it feels to do something right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a weird thing, and I know a lot of people disagree with that, like how I say, because I'm saying that practicing slow at first to build the proper skills, then you can actually practice a little faster and more to the point quicker.
So you get better at practicing.
Yes,
what you're saying.
absolutely.
Okay.
In so many words. Just right there, yeah.
Yeah, no, learning is a skill.
Yes,
right?
Practicing
is a skill.
Yes.
Yeah, and the more of it you do, the more the quicker the progress will be, I think, because you get better at that skill. I think something like on the topic of bad habits and avoiding them and that kind of stuff, I think there are the way you do a particular technique, like a sweep picking technique or something, right? I think if you learn it, you can learn it one way and learn it another way, and when these two different ways, when you first start, one might be easier, but the other one that is more difficult in the beginning might give you a greater benefit at the end when you have fully developed the technique.
Definitely.
And I think, yeah, if you just start out, I'm just going to go, 100%, play as fast as I can right from the beginning, whatever way you can play the fastest is the way you're going to go. But that might not be ultimately the best technique. You sort of hit like a ceiling.
Absolutely.
Right? And there might be a higher ceiling if you had learned it a different way to begin with, but that different way might have been more difficult to begin with.
That's, kind of like what I was talking about, like the different levels and stuff. No, I'm glad you bring that up too, because bad habits are dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, as far as, like, even going from, like, quality of your playing to, like, longevity.
Yes.
Like, having bad habits is actually scary for your limbs and for your body, everything. Like, a singer wouldn't do something ridiculous immediately because they could hurt themselves.
Yeah.
That's
a really good point.
It's very possible to hurt yourself playing guitar.
Yeah.
And people, I think that's something that people just don't think about. It's like, well, it's not like I'm singing, or it's not like I'm running a marathon. No, but you're using your wrist and your arm in ways it's not used to doing.
Yeah.
Especially your hands and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you
and
gotta
repetitive movements.
Exactly. You got to give your body a chance to be able to learn and grow without just level 10 all of a sudden. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You got to work your way up to it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so, I mean, to sum it up, I don't know who's saying that you should not practice slow, but... I mean, it's a nice thought. It's a nice idea, right? But I don't think it's really... I mean, I think it just ends up limiting you later on, and maybe even working against you. Yeah.
And like I said before with my psychological bullshit, it's not impossible.
Right.
I'm going to say that, like, practicing faster and getting things quicker is not impossible. It's just not generally recommended.
Right. Not ideal.
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I agree.
There's nothing that can beat wholesome, strong, structured, good practice.
Wholesome.
Yeah. Okay, topic number 4. It's I guess a little bit of an easier one, but it's still a big controversy amongst a lot of people, especially guitar players.
Yeah.
Is solid state amps or tube amps?
Right. Yeah.
This
is it's another ongoing controversy, but I feel like in the past 5 or 10 years, I feel like more people have changed their minds on this.
I feel the same way, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, for a long time there, it was like, oh, you use transistor amplifiers, and they scoff at you, and you're like, well, what's wrong with transistor?
Yeah.
Everybody was like, tube glory, everybody was all into the tube thing.
Yeah. And I think when we say solid state, we're including whatever, anything that's not a tube amplifier.
Like basically. Amp modeling and everything could be a part of that as well,
totally.
too, sure.
Yeah, and I think it has, digital amps and all this stuff, it has gone through these different phases, maybe generations or something. At first it was like, well, you just want an amp that works, that's not as expensive and as complicated as a tube amp, and they got that. And then it was like, okay, well, you want an amp that sounds better, because the early solid state amps didn't sound very good.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, well, we got that, so now we want an amp that feels it responds the way a tube amp does. And I feel like that's kind of what they're working on now.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, technology has made leaps and bounds in modeling and or just tone quality and stuff in general. So it's like you could get something like Axe-Fx is like a great example. That's not tube, right?
No. But
Axe-Fx is like legendary amongst many guitar players. A lot of people, it's a sought after piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Where it's like you still have a Marshall JCM and people still it's sought after as well. So it's like it's more accepted nowadays, like you were saying.
Yeah. And I think from the audience's perspective, I think the debate is done there. I don't think an audience member can be like, oh, that's a tube amp. If they can't see it, like, oh, that's a tube amp, or no, that's a amp model or something. Like, I don't think an audience member can tell anymore. Definitely not on a recording.
It's tough. Yeah.
But for the person using it, I think there are still some differences. But even those differences are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Every iteration, every new new tech that comes out, you know, I think those differences are getting smaller and smaller.
I
for me
think so.
personally, the benefits in terms of the convenience and the ability to get the same sound every time you set up, you know, like oh, I'm going to get my tube amp, and like, oh, make sure the wall voltage is the same wherever you plug it in, and
Make sure the temperature is exactly
Yeah.
82 degrees.
yeah, really, like maybe the wood, you know, if the humidity is different, the wood in your cabinet has changed or something like that.
yeah.
It's like, but no, the ability to get the same exact sound every time is something I really love about all the modern stuff. And so, you know, for me, the convenience is worth whatever slight difference in feel or something
Yeah,
it is.
and I think that like those words too, for me, is a big deal.
Right.
Because like every amp has to do something for you.
Right.
You shouldn't go out and buy something just because someone said it's good.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything has to respond to you as a player. I don't go out and buy an amplifier and hope it works.
Right.
You know, and be like, oh, it's supposed to be really
Yeah.
good. So
well, if I say it's good,
clearly,
you can,
clearly, yes.
you can trust that. Of
Absolutely,
course. Yeah.
you're on the internet, you know.
Right,
Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
can trust everybody on the internet.
Yeah.
But no, like I think it's really important to buy an amplifier, regardless of tube or transistor or whatever it is. It has to work with you. You know,
Yeah.
you got to be happy with what you're doing. I don't think you should go out and purchase something just because it's sought after or
Right,
like
yeah.
it's a legendary Marshall. You might hate Marshall.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just the same way somebody might hate like an Axe Effects or something.
Yeah.
You just get what works.
Right.
Get what makes you happy.
Yeah.
You know?
What inspires you.
Exactly. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's a personal thing. Again, you know, not everybody's gonna have the same tastes. All right. So last topic here, guys, and I think this one is pretty close to especially your heart.
Right.
Is people who think that expensive, ungodly, costly gear is better than cheaper stuff.
Right.
So let's say the controversy behind buying a $3,000 Les Paul and a $400 Les Paul
Yeah.
basically comes down to, does the gear make the player?
Yes.
What do you think?
Generally no. You know, generally no. And there's a lot of examples, even historical, you know, go back decades in time, you know, there's a lot of examples of like guitars that were really iconic instruments, or somebody used it on a really important album or something like that were like knockoff guitars or cheap instruments, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean there are extreme examples we can go to, but you know, so there are some limitations to it, you know, like a $60 guitar is probably going to have problems and this kind of thing, but if you're in like the $400-$500 range, you can get a great instrument.
I think that's generally a really good area to kind of sit into. Like,
I
mean, I'll be honest, and you can be honest about it if you want to, but most of the time when I go into the studio to record albums that aren't for me, I don't use thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
Right.
Like, I get the tones I want with what I have and what I use.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like I'm hiding anything by saying I think that cheaper gear is sometimes more longevitous than more expensive gear is. I mean, that's an investment at some point in time.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and not everybody has the amount of money to invest in something worth that much.
Right.
And that's just a human thing. That's just it's a human problem. You know, not everybody has a whole lot of money.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah. And that's something that I think has been really great, you know, because the quality of less expensive instruments has gotten so good in the past
really actually
few years, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a wonderful thing, because before you could have, you know, some kid whose, you know, family doesn't have money, he doesn't have money, he might have within him this great desire, you know, or this great sort of potential for an amazing talent.
Absolutely, yeah.
But because he doesn't have access to a decent instrument, that's never going to be able to develop. Now I feel like it has an equalizing effect, right?
It does,
now that more and more people have access to better instruments, because the price is lower, I think that, you know, we can discover musicians that wouldn't have been discovered
absolutely.
before. Yeah.
And there's something that I always say to, I think I've even mentioned it in one of my videos or something, but to me, it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about practicing a little bit ago too, is you make sure that you're not the cheap instrument.
Yeah, yes.
You know what I mean? Like your playing.
That's a great, yeah.
Your playing will drive through what you're using.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You could pick up a $90 Squire, but still be a good instrument yourself. And the guitar's not going to really change a lot about that.
Right.
I mean, sure, like you said, some qualities will, diminish in the amount of money that you're spending, but ultimately you are still you. You're still good.
Yeah.
And you still have all your talents and everything. So just, make sure that you're not the cheap instrument. I say it again.
Yeah.
But like I always say that, like, I don't believe that by purchasing a $1,200 guitar, you're infinitely all of a sudden more better than when you had a $200 guitar.
Right.
I don't believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean...
and there's things, too, that really sort of just like, I don't know, stereotypes or whatever that you see, like, the guy who is like the attorney who always wanted to play guitar. Like, he's the guy who's going to go out and buy a $4,000 Gibson, and it's going to sit on a stand in the corner and collect dust, like that kind of stuff. And it's like, if somebody, if Joe Bonamassa or whatever, if somebody who, is going to spend a lot of money on a guitar and then play it and use it, and sort of justify the cost,
absolutely,
then great,
sure,
go for it, right? And I like when a guitar builder, like, they become obsessive over like making this incredible instrument or something. Like that craft is its own thing, right? That's really cool. So I want there to be expensive guitars.
Yeah.
But the idea that like it's a status symbol or something like that. It's a
necessity.
It's a necessity. Yeah.
I mean, especially too if you're like growing. There's no need to start your growing process with a $4,000 guitar.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But there is also something to be said about a guitar that just sucks.
Oh, yeah.
If somebody who's learning buys a guitar that is awful, they don't know, they'll never learn well either, because they're not giving themselves at least a moderate amount of a chance to do it.
Right.
So there is a little bit to be said about both sides of that spectrum.
Yeah, cool.
And if you need help with cheap gear...
Or this guy.
I mean,
either one of us, really.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was a lot of stuff, but I think we basically settled it forever. I mean, no one else has to argue about it.
I was going to say, clearly our opinions are the only ones that matter in this case, so, if you guys need any...
I always think that.
Same. I mean, we are the gurus, obviously, so if anybody has any questions, just ask us, and that's it. No one else.
You have a great channel, dude.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks a ton for having me on.
Absolutely, man.
And I hope everyone subscribes to Mr. Deacon Lacrosse, because he's got a great channel, great views on things, great perspective, and great chops, of course.
Well, I mean, and of course, if you guys don't already know who GuitarMAX is, I don't know how that's possible, but you're wearing your shirt for God's sakes, dude.
Yeah. I have a problem, though. I think I'm going to start putting the logo lower, because when I wear my own shirt, my hair covers up my logo.
Musician problem.
I'm not going to cut my hair.
I was going to say, clearly you could just cut your hair right at the neckline.
Please.
We'll put a bowl on your head and just do the Beatles haircut.
Yeah.
But no, thank you guys for joining us. It's always fun to kind of have discussions and topics about stuff like this. We love controversies, and we want to hear everybody's opinion on this too. It's not just about us. So if you guys have something to add, or maybe there's a topic we didn't think of that maybe you do, let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe to both our channels, and just feel free to start a discussion with us as well. So I guess, guys, thanks for joining us one last time, Mr. GuitarMAX. I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your opinions about these matters.
Anytime, man.
Join us next time. Well, maybe we'll have more discussions. Who knows? But definitely stay subscribed to our channels and check back for more stuff. And thanks again, guys, for watching.